Happy Labor Day, y'all. I'm coming at you with another true crime and vampires from history episode. This time, we're going to be talking about a aristocratic woman from history. And no, it is not Elizabeth Bathory. It ain't the Countess Bathory, which I know so many people are very familiar with. And we will get to her. She'll have her own little episode. And actually, we'll have another noble woman that we'll be discussing as well by the name of Eleonora von Schwarzenberg. But today's episode is about none other than, and this was Russian noblewoman Daria Saltykova. She's also sometimes known as Saltykova. I don't know if I said that. Daria Nikolaevna Saltykova. She was born on March 11th of 1730 in Russia, which is nearly some 200 years or so after the Countess Elizabeth Bathory's reign. And Elizabeth's reign of terror was pretty scary. But equally so was Daria Saltykova. Daria was born into a rich and ancient Russian noble family. She was one of 5 daughters. She ended up marrying a nobleman by the name of Gleb Alexievich Saltykov. And she had 2 sons, Theodore and Nicholas. However, she was left a widow by 1755. She was only 25 years old at that time. And with her husband now being perished, she inherited his estate, which was a substantial size considering his family legacy. So she had quite a number of serfs under her authority to care for her property and as a part of her estate where she and her sons lived. Now, in the beginning, Daria did not seem like she was going to show any traits of what she became. She didn't show any signs of being cruel or malevolent or, interested in being torturous to people. Upon her husband's perishing, Daria was in charge of some 600 or so, possibly a little bit more serfs within her estate. So nobody knows exactly what it was that triggered the sudden change in Daria Saltykova. Dramatic metamorphosis from what she was to what she became were like night and day. It seemed like they came from nowhere. However, legend has it that this change came in Daria, and it was triggered by her hearing about the actions of an unfaithful lover. And you might say, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And she needed something to take her rage out on, apparently. Shortly after the death of her husband, Daria began to court a land surveyor by the name of Nikolai Chuchev, who was the grandfather of the future poet Fyodor Yuchev. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Now, whether or not Daria began this affair with him before her husband passed or after is a matter of debate, but she was courting him as a widow. However, it appears that Nikolai never had any intention of taking their affair anywhere serious, and he ended up eloping with a younger, red-haired woman. Upon hearing this, Daria was enraged, and she ordered her serfs to go and burn his house to the ground. Then she sent out assassins to unalive him and his new wife. However, somehow this reached Nikolai in time, and he and his wife were able to flee Moscow before anything tragic occurred. So this began Daria Saltykova's reign of sadistic, unaliving, vampiric behavior and her methodology. It seemed that Daria might have been a misogynistic woman because she supposedly unalived 137 total women, and she only unalived 3 men. Evidently, according to history, the 3 male deaths were accidental. And then other accounts state that many of the unalivings happened due to her violent mood swings, and Daria shifting from one extreme to the next, often blaming her servants for something that upset her. And though she never truly intended on them going so far as to unalive them, she was only trying to discipline them to prevent them from repeating whatever mistake that she had deemed they had committed and took it too far. She did some really awful things. At the slightest offense for just minor things, if she dubbed them that way, she would begin to scream and holler and throw things at her servants and so on the most maximum extremes. She was known to do such wild and crazy things, including an account of apparently stepping repeatedly on the belly of an impregnated woman, and also committing acts of bloodletting, sanguinarianism, and cannibalism. She also became famous for burning people's hair, throwing servant girls outside completely naked, in the dead of the Russian winter no less, pouring boiling waters on top of her servants, severing their ears with hot pokers, and whipping her female servants until the bones of their back were completely exposed from the tearing of their flesh. In another instance, she became enraged with one of her male workers, servants, and she deemed him ungrateful, so she decided that the way to get back to him was to unalive his wife. After succeeding at that endeavor, she began to taunt and torment this. When he found another wife and remarried, she also unalived that wife. And then a third. This woman really held a grudge, but because of her wealth and given her family connections to the Russian court, and the imperial court that is, Daria was able to continue doing these things to people for a number of years. Finally, the relatives of many of the victims petitioned the Empress Catherine II. That is, Catherine the Great. Catherine the Great decided to publicly try Daria Saltykova in order to further her lawfulness initiatives, and she had her arrested in 1762. Daria was held in prison then until 1760. This was so that investigators could perform a thorough investigation. Catherine the Great's College of Justice questioned and interviewed countless different witnesses and examined different records from Daria Saltykova's. The investigating official counted as many as 138 suspicious deaths, of which the vast majority were contributed to Daria Saltykova. However, that being said, Daria was only actually found guilty of having killed 38 female serfs by beating and torturing them. However, this perplexed Empress Catherine the Great. She wasn't quite sure what punishment would best serve the sadistic Countess Daria Saltykova. Since capital punishment had been abolished in Russia, Catherine the Great did not really have that as an option for Daria Saltykova. And in order to push for something like that, Catherine the Great was going to need the support of the nobility. It's important to note that during this trial, Daria Saltykova's accomplices were also found guilty, and Catherine the Great sentenced them to public flogging, followed by serious hard labor. But that still left Daria Saltykova. In 1768, Daria was chained on a public platform in Moscow for 1 hour with a sign about her neck that read, "This woman has tortured and murdered." After this, she was sent to life imprisonment in the cellar of the Ivanovsky convent in Moscow. Daria died on December the 9th, 1801, and she was later buried next to her relatives in the Donsky Monastery necropolis. Daria's bloody history will be a part of Russian history forever and makes her a legend, though not for any good reason. She was a sadistic person. Being a prominent part and fixture of Russian history, in 2022, a 16-episode series entitled The Bloody Duchess was released and aired on Amazon Prime Video. This series will teach you a lot more about Daria Saltykova, and if you're interested, you can go ahead and check it out. Again, it is called The Bloody Duchess, and that is the story of one of our prominent female vampiric sadistic unalivers for true crime and vampire history today. I hope everyone stays safe, enjoys their Labor Day, and has a wonderful Monday otherwise. On our next episode, I think that we will probably delve into talking about Eleonora von Schwarzenberg, and I'm going to leave Elizabeth for last because she's been the head of the class for female vampiric sadistic tormentors for a very long time, and not for no good reason, but I think it's time to emphasize other aristocratic crazies through history who did terrible things, and let y'all learn about that. So that's Daria Saltykova, Russia.